It's 8:38 now. It's been described as the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS. More than 2,000 people died after they were given blood products that were infected with hepatitis C and HIV in the 1970s and 80s. Many more were infected and are still living with the consequences today. Yesterday, the government bowed to years of pressure from MPs and campaign groups and announced an inquiry. Speaking in the Commons yesterday, the Health Minister, Philip Dunne, apologised to victims.
I'd like to start my contribution by offering my personal apology to all those who've been affected by the tragedy of infected NHS-supplied blood and blood products. This has had a terrible impact on so many individuals and families, and I know that it has quite rightly been the subject of many debates in this chamber.
Brian Carberry from Downpatrick contacted hepatitis C through contaminated blood. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
How do you feel when you listen to that apology?
Well, it's a step forward compared to where we've been this last 40 years fighting for an inquiry into this year's disaster.
And what have those 40 years been like, Brian? Because you contracted hepatitis C through contaminated blood. You needed those regular factory blood transfusions because you are a haemophiliac. When did you find out that something had gone so badly wrong?
Well, I found out, and my consultant told me in 1991, although I had been infected for several years before that there. I believe it would have been the late 70s, early 80s whenever I was infected.
So it took over a decade?
It took over a decade for she was just appointed my new consultant because my old consultant retired, and she noticed in my records that I'd never been told.
And were you displaying any symptoms of hepatitis C? Were you feeling ill?
Well, your symptoms, it's called the hidden disease. It slowly destroys your liver. It leaves you fatigued all the time. You've joint and muscle pain all the time. You've short concentration spans. You have brain fog. There's so many underlying issues and all that there. Whenever they're so subtle and all that there, but they just keep chipping away at you. So that's all the signs of hepatitis C.
So there's a significant impact on your life.
Absolutely.
Brian, and one of the effects is a vulnerability to getting cancer.
It is indeed, yes. It affects your immune system, and it affects you're at a higher risk of catching cancers as you are, like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, liver cancers, all increased by having hepatitis C. And
on this factor 8, can you tell us more about this blood which was contaminated and where it came from? This blood came from America, so it did. It was taken from prisoners, from prostitutes, from drug users. All the down and outs that sell their blood, it was all taken from there, and then it was all pulled into one big batch. So it only took a couple of people that were infected and out there to contaminate the whole batch. So there were inadequate, to say the least, checks on the blood that was filtering through and reaching people like you. Absolutely, but in the early 80s and out there, in 1980, they knew that the risks of these blood products because of the people getting sick in America and all that there, and it was all contributed down to this blood, and yet the UK still continued using the blood from right up to 1988 or 1986. And how do you feel that the proper checks and balances weren't in place, Brian? Because when you think that 2,400 people lost their lives, they died because of this. Absolutely. Well, the checks were in place and the people did know, and I wanted somebody to be accountable for why this blood was being used. Like in 1980, America was warning Britain and all that there that there's high risks with this blood, and Britain still continued using it. And how do you feel as a voice for victims? How do you feel about that? I feel that there has to be a proper public inquiry. There's been cover-up after cover-up. I have seen my medical records, and there's a decade of records missing. So there is, nobody's been held accountable. Yeah, no government negligence has ever been established, has it? No, there's been no government. Like that's Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrats, anybody that's been in power. They have all seen all the facts and all that there, and they've hidden them all. And how has it impacted on you, on your health and on your life, in real terms? I'm run down all the time, and I'm depressed all the time.
I can't get motivated to do anything. I lose concentration on things very, very quick. I could, it's just really run my life right down, so it has.
And you also contracted non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
I did indeed, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I did, and I went through chemo for that there, so I did, and thankfully now I'm in remission, and hopefully the longer I'm in remission, the less chance there is of it coming back, but it's one of these things you just have to take each day at a time.
And Brian, it's my understanding that those affected, people like you speaking today, they've never been properly compensated, have they?
There was an extra payment way back in 2003, 2004, and then there were schemes set up which are all being reformed now at the minute to try and make them work better than what they have, because they were being run terribly beforehand and nobody could get it. It was like going to a begging bowl to try and get anything out of anybody, But so they're all being reformed now, so we'll have to wait and see what way all that works. But no, there's been no compensation. They put down free grata payments and all that there with no fault.
What does that mean, Brian?
It means saying, yes, we're giving you this here, but it's not our fault. That's what they're saying.
And what's your response to that? What's your reaction to that?
They're saying it's not their responsibility and all that there, and clearly it is their responsibility whenever they've got the blood and they were forcing us to use this blood.
I suppose in many ways, Brian, can you ever compensate yourself or the people who lost loved ones for what's happened here?
There's 2,400 people who will not be coming back.
Yeah.
And no price of money and all that there is ever going to bring them back.
Well, thank you so much for bravely. What would you like to see, just before you go? It's very brave of you to speak to us today, Brian. What would you like to see happen?
I would like an open inquiry where accountability will be apportioned and we will know exactly what happened, and all the secrets and all. People think we're mad and if we keep saying, oh, this happened, that happened and all that there. But, it'll come out that yes, it is all happening, and they did know.
Okay, thank you so much for speaking to us today, Brian Carberry. Brian there is from Downpatrick, and Brian contracted hepatitis C through contaminated blood, so he knows all too well about the reality behind this.